What's up? I'm your Elixir mentor, Jacob Litzo. In today's video, we're going to generate schemas and carry out database migrations, all guided by our UML class diagram we went over in the project design video. This step will lay the foundation for our data structure, bringing us one step closer to our final application. Ready to transform diagrams into actual schemas and database tables? Let's dive right in. Before we open up VS Code and get into our project, I want to just pull up our UML diagrams again, because these will help us create our schemas and migration files using Phoenix to generate all these files for us. So as we're looking at this, we want to create our gist schema first. Let's go ahead and do Command space and open up our terminal. And let's cd into our project. Mine is in Documents, Development, Elixir Mentor, and then Elixir Gist. Okay, so I'm going to just scroll so we can see this UML diagram here of our gist schema. And now we're going to use Phoenix to just generate this for us. And it makes it really easy. All we have to do is use mix space phx.gen. Now, in the past, we've always done .json, excuse me, .json here. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to do .context. And what context does, it will create our schema for us, our context file, our migration files, and some test files. What it doesn't create is our views and controllers, because we're not actually going to need those things in this project. The views are used as like API responses for JSON responses, and controllers we're not going to need because we're going to be using our LiveView.ex files to communicate with our context file when we create and edit our tables. So we're going to use .context. Now, I do know you can do .live as well, and that would create some live views for us right out of the box. We're not going to do that in this video because we're going to create our live views all manually. And I think that'll give us a better grasp how everything works. And that way we don't have to just be adjusting CSS the whole project. We can just create things and learn a lot more. So we're going to do .context. And now we're going to do, we use capital GIST, plural with an S. This is the name of our context file. And then we're going to do the name of our schema, which is gist with no S. And then we want to follow this with the name of our table, which is all lowercase gists, plural again. And then we go forward and let's go down this list over here. I'm looking on the right side, gist. So our ID is automatically generated. We don't have to worry about that. But we do have a relationship with a user. So we're going to do user underscore ID. So we're doing ID, not user, because what is actually stored in the database is just going to be the ID of the user. And then we do colon, and then we say references, colon, and then the name of the table we want to reference with this relationship. And that is all lowercase users, plural. And then space, our next thing is comments, and we have a relationship of has many. So with that being said, when we have relationships like has many, we're only going to add it to our schema folder or our schema file for ecto, and ecto just helps us automatically like preload data and things like that. But our migration and our actual everything else doesn't need it. So we're going to ignore comments in this one. And we can skip right ahead to name, colon, and that's type string. And then we have our description, colon, that's type text. And we don't really want to limit descriptions. And we also don't want to limit markup text, because markup text is the actual code we are pasting. So that is also text. Now inserted at and updated at are automatically added to things because of ecto. So thank you very much. And now all we have to do now is hit enter here. And that creates schema, context, and some other good stuff. So let's open up our project and take a look at what it generated for us. expand lib, and then we'll see that Elixir gist here. We have a gists folder, which if we open it, we have our gist schema, which is everything we just created, which is great. We're going to come back to this. We have a few adjustments, and then we have our gists.ex context file, which is like our interaction with our database. So we create, we can get, we can update, all that good stuff. We've been over this, but that's what this is. And then in our private directory here, we have repo, and our migrations get created here. And there is our migration file. So on delete, we're going to change from :nothing, which is Atom nothing, to :delete all. And what that's saying is if we create a gist and the user that created the gist gets deleted, the gist will be deleted as well. We don't need data that is no longer associated to a user that doesn't exist. So I just like to delete that stuff. There's tons of arguments on the web you can go through. Whether you should keep it or not, it's up to you. We're going to delete it because this is our project. We can do what we want. So that's done. So save this migration, and we're going to change our references to delete all on all of our migrations as we work our way through. All right. So that's a quick overview of just what got created. And now we need to create let's pull up our saved gists we need to create. So let's open up or bring our terminal back up, and saved gists, we're going to do mix space phx.gen.context again. And now we're going to use the same context name here, capital GISTS, so gists. So basically all of our database interactions, so like where we create gist, we can update gist, the context file is going to be shared with our saved gists. And you want to be very careful doing this because it can make your context file very big. But since our saved gist is just like bookmarking a gist and it's just a joiner table, we're going to include it in our context file. So we're going to create saved gists inside the same context file as where we create gists, and I'll show you in a minute. So that's why we're naming it the same thing here. And then we want to do our schema name, which is saved gist, singular, and then followed by our table name, which is saved underscore gists, plural, all lowercase. And then this has two references in it. So we're going to have our user underscore ID : and this references our users table. And then we have, since this is a joiner table, we have no extra data, just references to two different tables. And then we want to reference our gist underscore ID. So that's a references, and this references our gists table, GISTS. All right, and now that's done. All we do is hit enter. And it's warning us that our context file can get big, and it's telling us that we're adding more database interactions to our same context file that already exists. We're going to hit enter. So yes, we want to proceed. We know what we're doing here. And now when we pull up our VS Code again and go into our gists context, you're going to see that we have def module elixir.gists. And then when we scroll down, you're going to see right after the change set for gist here, you're going to see a random alias in the middle of the file that brings in our saved gist schema. And then you're going to see that we have the same exact repeated functions for saved gist. So list them, get them, create them, update them, delete them, all in the same place. And we're not going to do this for our comments schema, but it makes sense in this case, because then when we come up here to our Elixir gist directory into our gists where our schemas are, they're both saved in the same directory as well. So if you go into our schema here, you see that we have our saved gists all in one place. So I think this makes sense. I think it's awesome. And then if we go to our migration file, we're going to say delete all instead of nothing, like we just did. Delete all, and then save that and close that. And now let's pull up our last schema we need to make, which is our comment. And we need to do phx space, mix space phx dot gen dot context. And then we have our reference to our user object. So user underscore ID references colon our users table. And then we have our gist underscore ID colon, and that references our gists table. And this is a comment, right? So this isn't just a joiner table anymore. We're going to have markup text. So we're going to do our mark up underscore text, and this is type text. And now check our spelling because it's easier to change it before we create it, and then hit enter. And what did I do? Oh, guys, I'm losing it. I forgot to put all our context file name, our schema name, and our table's name. Good thing we got yelled at instead of just creating garbage, right? So we want a capital comments for our context file. And then we want a capital comment, singular, for our schema name. And then we want lowercase comments, plural, for our table name. And now if I hit enter again, we won't get yelled at. It'll create all of our files. And now we can go back to our project. And now we see a directory in Elixir Gist called comments. And here's our comments schema. And then we have our comments context file. And then we have another migration file, which the references we're going to change from nothing to delete all. And then save that. That's done. Now, before we can run migrations, there are some updates that we're going to want to do. We need to update the way we are handling our relationships and everything. So let's start with our gist schema. We have a relationship with our user ID. And we want to just delete that field, and we want it to say belongs to. So it belongs to 1. And then we want to reference our user, our user argument, right? Comma. And then we want the path to the user schema, which is Elixir Gist dot accounts dot user struct. And now we also want to, it's not in our migration file, but we want to have the relationship to our comments, which is has many, and then colon, and then reference our comments, all lowercase. And then we want the path to our comments, which is Elixir Gist comments, and then comment struct. And then there we go. And now in our cast, we need to cast our user ID. And then in our validate required, we also want to validate our user ID because we don't want gists created without accounts. We're requiring authentication, so we got to require that stuff. All right. And then one last thing, and then we're done updating things for our gist, is let's go to our gists.ex context file. And when we create a gist, we're going to automatically pass in the logged in user and build the association right away. So right down on line 1, not saved gists, we want to go up to create gist on line 52. In front of the attributes that we send in, we're going to send in a user map. And then instead of having our gist map here, an empty gist map, I should say, we're going to take that user object and pipe in the change set, and right above the change set, we're going to pipe in ecto.build association, and this is building the association with our gists schema. So what this is doing is it's just taking our user ID and adding it to the gist change set. So all we have to do is pass in current user with our gist data, and we're good to go. All right, this is going to be a little repetitive, But now we have to fix the relationships with saved gist schema as well. So if we go to the saved gist, we want to delete both of these actually. And what we're going to do is this belongs to a user. And then we need the path to a user, which is elixir gist.accounts.user struct. And then we want to do belongs to gist, and then the path to that, which is elixir gist.gists.gist struct. Okay. And then down below in the change set, we need to add to the cast. So we're going to need to cast our user ID and our gist ID with. All right. And then we're going to require both of those too, because you can't save a gist without being a authenticated user. And we need to know what user they belong to and what gist we're interested in. So we're going just to repeat this and require a gist ID and a user ID to create a saved gist, which makes sense, right? And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to jump back to our gist.ex context file and now scroll down to create saved gists. And now here we're passing in a user again. And then instead of piping off an empty saved gist map, we pipe off the user, and then we do the ecto build association with our saved gists. Plural. It's the name of the table. In fact, did I do plural up here? Yes. Okay. The name of the table is important. So now when we create a saved gist, all we have to do is pass in the gist ID, because we're going to be taking the current logged in user and building the association automatically, which is really cool. So save that. Little more repetition, but now we have to jump over to our comment schema and change these two fields again. So user ID and gist ID. And actually, if we go over to saved, copy these belongs to, it's the same thing. Go back to comment, delete the field user ID and gist ID, and put the belongs to. There we go. And then in our cast, you want to cast user underscore ID, comma, and cast gist underscore ID. And then we also are going to make these both required, because a comment needs to belong to a user and a comment also needs to belong to a gist. All right, and we're almost done, but we're going to go to our comments context file and create. We're going to automatically build the association with a user again. So get rid of the empty comment map, pipe off user, and then pipe ecto.build association with the comments table. We have our data ready to go. All of our schemas are built. Our context files are ready for the most part. Like, we're good to go. Our migrations are set up. Now all we have to do is pull up our terminal again. And now let's do mix ecto space ecto dot migrate. And now it'll build our tables. There we go. And just to make sure everything works, let's do a mix space phx dot server and make sure our project runs. Now, make sure your Postgres container is running in Docker. If it's not, press play, and we're good to go. So it is still running. We advanced our project by creating schemas and executing database migrations. We used Phoenix Generator to create the gist, save gist, and comment schemas, laying the groundwork for our data structure. If you need help or want to check out the source code, the GitHub link is in the description. Please join my Discord server, Elixir Mentor, if you have any questions or just want to hang out and chat. That link is in the description as well. If you want to learn how to build scalable, production-ready, full-stack, and REST API solutions, hit that subscribe button now. I'm Jacob Litzo, your Elixir Mentor. See you in the next video.